There have been a lot of awesome releases this year, with the most notable smartphones all being bezel-less. The iPhone 8 and 8 Plus definitely don't stand out with anything innovative, yet they're currently the best that Apple has to offer in 2017. It's a super interesting one to cover because it's nearly the same as the previous iPhone 7 Plus, yet it still feels like a great phone overshadowed by its even greater brother. So let's just tackle the elephant in the display here, and just to clear things up right off the bat, yes, the display definitely isn't great. It's fine for daily usage, but as soon as you go into the media consumption side of things, it becomes very apparent just how outdated this screen is now, especially coming from the Galaxy Note 8. That said, for everything else, it does perform really well, and the 1080p display resolution, while it's definitely outdated and not as good as you would expect, it does give you a really good battery life. And you know what, I never thought I'd be saying this about an iPhone, but it easily has the best battery life I have ever seen in a smartphone. After a day of full usage, traveling 100 miles, it was only down 55% by the end of the day, which is amazing. Granted, I did put it on battery saving mode, but honestly there was no difference in usage at all. I wouldn't have even noticed it if you didn't tell me it was on. I always recommend carrying a battery pack, but for this phone I just don't feel like there's a need to do it at all, so a poor screen resolution in exchange for this battery life is definitely a trade I'm willing to make. It's definitely not something I'm happy about, but if it's there I won't really complain about it. Now, one of the main reasons I actually bought this phone was because of the speed. After seeing the benchmarks, I was pretty much sold instantly because of the A11 chip on this phone being twice as fast as the best that Android has to offer. With that in mind, speed in daily usage and gaming is definitely great, but it's not anything crazy like the 2 times faster speed you might have expected. I obviously knew that going in, but for those of you that base your decisions solely off benchmarks for performance and even for cameras and anything else you can benchmark, you need to know that it's just not a reliable metric to use. If you still don't believe me there, you can actually check out my highly scientific speed test with the Note 8. The results will probably surprise you. The cameras on this phone are pretty good, just like last time. What stands out to me here is that portrait mode, which was also on the 7 Plus, works exactly like every other phone here on the 8 Plus, but the results are actually a lot better than I've had previously. I love the extra portrait mode features where you can completely remove the background and shine the subject, but it takes a lot of tries to get right, which can be really tiring during a shooting session. You do have to take your time using this, and it's very finicky. Now, that will probably be improved by software updates down the line, but for where it is right now, it's just not a reliable option. The overall camera quality is great though. It performs really well in low light and also in general lighting conditions, taking landscape shots and images of people if that's your thing, and the high dynamic range always makes shots look absolutely amazing. It looks great 100% of the time with zero exceptions, and with a super fast shutter speed as well, this is just a great phone for the camera. This year we're of course getting waterproofing again, but one of the few additions to this phone is wireless charging, which is great if you use it, but if you're like me, it's really not a big deal at all. And on that note, we have the only design change on this phone, which is a glossy back, so it will attract more fingerprints, and in my opinion it looks worse than the matte black iPhone 7 Plus, but it really comes down to personal preference at the end of the day. Now, one other minor difference with the 8 Plus, and I think this is the last difference on this phone, is that it comes with a True Tone display. It's supposed to make colors look better, but when I put this side by side with the 7 Plus, it was basically just a night mode. I really don't understand how it's supposed to work. And on that note, software is always a tricky one with iOS. You either love it or you hate it, but in my opinion, it's actually not too bad. I'm able to do everything I was doing on my Note 8, and iOS actually has some pretty neat features too, like being able to double tap on the home button to reach things that are too high up on the screen. This is honestly one of the most underrated features in the whole phone, and there are other hidden features like that throughout the 8 Plus, which is absolutely great. I also really like how the UI looks and just flows in with everything else. 3D touch and the haptic feedback is another thing that I absolutely love about this phone, because you can feel the small vibrations doing pretty much everything and it just feels so refined. Now, Android doesn't have anything like this apart from the Galaxy series where you can force touch the home button, and that is one of the things that you just can't really appreciate until you've properly used it on an iPhone. And so at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to in my opinion. The 8 Plus is just an iPhone 7 Plus with a few extra neat features, and depending on how you see it, that can either be hugely disappointing like it is for me, or actually not too bad. And that really relies on whether or not you've ever used an iPhone as a daily driver before. If you have, you know that iPhones are just good phones at the end of the day, and that's why I think this is one of the most underrated phones. It still works extremely well for what it does, and I feel like it doesn't get the attention it deserves. But that said, if you're not like that, you're not gonna like this phone because it comes with nothing new and you may as well skip over it considering its price. Either fork up the extra cash for the iPhone X or pay less for basically the same phone and get the iPhone 7 Plus. But guys, with that, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new around here, and I'm out. Peace.